How many people own Bitcoin here, just so we can kind of get that? Wow, that's actually, I'm surprised. That's great. We have a good panel here. So we have Joyce Kim. She's from Freestyle Capital. She's made 2 investments in Bitcoin that she doesn't want to disclose yet. Have you been drinking? No? You don't want to disclose them? Okay. Nice try. Adam Draper here, who's probably one of the leaders in Bitcoin investing. He had the first Bitcoin accelerator called Boost down in San Mateo. Zlatko, pronounce her last name for me.
Bajelic.
There you go. And he's the head of operations for the Bitcoin store. They are the first and largest Bitcoin store. Do you disclose revenue publicly?
Yeah, we're at, sales-wise, we broke 2 million, I believe.
So they're basically the largest store that accepts Bitcoin. They're larger than Overstock and Tiger Direct in terms of their Bitcoin acceptance as well. And Mark, who is, I was going to say you're a Bitcoin curmudgeon, but I don't know. We had a talk. It sounds like you're a little more bullish on it.
What?
Probably, well, no? Okay. Probably more experience than all of us. Lots of experience with Intuit and many other financial tech companies as well. We're at an e-commerce conference, so let's start with that. Should an e-commerce company accept Bitcoin? And why? Who has a thought on that?
Is this working? Yeah. I mean, my thoughts on whether or not e-commerce should accept Bitcoin is sort of why not. It's a currency. It has value. You might as well accept it. But like, it's money. It's another form of money. And actually, as a merchant, you get to save that 2.9% and 30 cents on every transaction. And for instance, Overstock.com, when they announced, not that this is going to happen to every single person, but they got $150,000 in revenue the first day, and they were all from new customers. And the reason is that all of these Bitcoin millionaires are trying to put their money, or this Bitcoin somewhere, and when they want to support the ecosystem, because they all made so much money over the course of the last 2 years, they just want it to succeed. So it's it's a way in which you can gain new customers that might be a different demographic than you might normally get.
I would say yes, unless you are so developer resource constrained that you don't have the time to implement it, and you're in a market where the demographic of the Bitcoin users is not the people who'll be buying from your site.
What about the PR of accepting Bitcoin? In the early days, it's like...
I actually want to hear your thoughts on this, because you're actually literally this.
Yeah, I'd say probably the biggest thing for us is, I don't know if many of you know our stores, bitcoinstore.com. We're sister companies, memory dealers, been around for 15 years. They accept Bitcoin as well. We started off on a really, really unique kind of roadmap. Since we had capital on the back end of things, we were able to partner up with one of the biggest vendors, which is Ingram Micro. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, but they're all over the world. So we started off at a 0% markup. And the reason why we did that is because Bitcoin was $25 when we started. And we looked at it as, okay, let's try to get this on a mass scale. Let's get people to get interested. Why are these guys able to ship things on a 48-hour or whatever it is? We ship, I think, 2 days from the time that you order. So when people saw that, they were just, kind of curious in what's going on. And then they saw the prices compared to Amazon, which was, anywhere from $50 to $60 cheaper on a TV or a couple $100 cheaper. And then they looked at it as, well, how are you guys able to operate? Well, we have a 0% markup because we don't have to worry about chargebacks or fraud or any of that stuff. It really gives us sort of a sense of just unique. I don't think a lot of people have the power to do that without any actual funding. We started off with with the self-funded, overall. So when it came down to, I think it's kind of, people look at it in a way of, you guys are just trying to get Bitcoin out there. Well, yes, that too, but we also sell tangible goods. We were the first company to actually give you tangible goods for Bitcoin, which struck a lot of people. And at $25, we've been holding our Bitcoin ever since then. And we haven't converted anything to US dollars.
So is that $2 million based off of appreciation of
That's
Bitcoin?
in USD.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no margin, except you have a 5,000% margin, roughly. I guess.
Look, Bitcoin works.
I'll let you guys do the numbers.
Yeah, it's a lot of math to do late in the day. But
Yeah,
go
but
ahead.
Bitcoin works when you have a lot of international customers, right? Because you don't have all those transaction fees. It's not a pain in the ass. But it also doesn't work in a lot of ways because, personally, I've held Bitcoin for a long time. I've given it to friends, and I've used it for donations to nonprofits. And I've not used it on anything else because when I donate it, I get to write off the entire appreciation. I'm making a good donation, so I donate anyway. I buy back in at the same price, and my cash basis is higher, right? So there are a lot of people who are spending their Bitcoins because it's good for the community, but there's also a larger percentage of people who hold Bitcoins that are not spending it because it's hyper deflationary right now. So
I'd also like to add one thing. We also based our business around Bitcoin rather than basing Bitcoin around our business. So we started around the fact that, hey, we want to start a Bitcoin business. We're not looking to make any US dollars. We don't accept anything else but Bitcoin. And it's worked tremendously for us. It's been
What about the
fucking
PR
amazing.
opportunities? We have a lot of folks in here, early, mid, late stage e-commerce. If they take Bitcoin, are they going to get a great press hit? Is it going to rain Bitcoins? What should they expect today? I mean, has the ship sailed, or can you still get press for it, I guess?
Right. I think that was a big thing. I think it still gives people a good sense of PR, but I think about 4 or 5 months ago, that was a big thing. People would say, oh, we're accepting Bitcoin now, post it on Reddit, this and that, and all of a sudden they see $1,200, $1,300 just come in Bitcoin, and then they get struck by this thing like, holy shit, this actually works. And then you see the big picture.
The PR really comes now, not necessarily mainstream. It's more if you post to the Bitcoin subreddit on Reddit, you will get traffic. Like it will come to you if you post on that with like, we're accepting Bitcoin. You'll probably get a couple customers. Yeah.
My question to everybody here is who's running a business. How many people are actually working on incorporating Bitcoin into their current businesses?
And who has no idea what to do about Bitcoin? It's about the same number. Same people, I think, just raised their hands twice.
Yes. Why, well, what do you mean by the flow? By the the actual purchase funnel and so forth?
Well, I think on our end it comes from.
Yes. Why would you add that to the funnel? Typically, if you're building a funnel, you want less items in the funnel. Why would you add an additional step or additional button to the funnel?
Well, in our sense, like I said, we don't accept that. But to answer your question, I think it comes down to the point of people in the Bitcoin world are very adamant about their security, right? So you don't want to give out a credit card number or whatever it is, because that potentially can be fraud or whatever it is for us. If we were to accept credit cards, then we would have a percentage of fraud and chargebacks and all this stuff. So when people see Bitcoin, I think it gives them the sense of security. Those people that actually are in Bitcoin gives them a sense of security that once the payment is sent, it's done. It's a push method. It's not a pull method.
But
And I also
it's a
think-
false sense of security on the transaction layer only. I mean,
Well,
your
he's talking about identity
Bitcoins
theft and
are
credit
not
card
necessarily
theft.
safe and secure. So just because they're good for the few folks who are comfortable and capable of doing those transactions, they are anonymous because they want to be, first. And second, Bitcoins are definitively not a secure methodology of holding and transacting yet.
Wait, but to go back to your
So
question.
I think it's a kind of a false premise to start with that, but I want to also say I think your key point is the choice that somebody makes in a commerce purchase is often the point at which they fall out of the funnel. And so whether Bitcoin will increase throughput on the funnel or not is not something that's been proven. It's brought customers who only want to do Bitcoin, but has it negatively affected the alternative segment of the funnel? I think the data that I've seen from those who've run those tests is that they have not gained net business from offering Bitcoin. They've gotten Bitcoin business, which is different than having a smoother funnel that flows through.
Well, it's a new
what-
demographic. It's like a new section of users, which would
It's
mean
a bunch
that
of people we don't know who they are, so I don't know if we know what their demographics are.
But it's increasing their business. You can't say it's not
You
increasing
guys
their
are all
business.
No,
wait,
the
you're
data
conflating
that
a
I've
lot of different
seen,
issues
the
here.
data
Wait.
that I've seen.
Hold on, everybody's conflating a lot of issues. You're talking about security of the protocol. He's answering a question about security
No,
of the
I
transaction.
went back to answer
He's
the
asking-
question
No,
about
he
the
was-
He's
funnel.
asking
you
about
answered the
UX.
question.
He's
I
asking
answered
about
the
UX.
question
So on the
about the
UX
funnel.
point, it makes sense to add it as another method if it's. It depends on what the user's doing. If you're trying to actually, if you're like my friends in Korea want to buy Gap socks, they have a very, very hard time buying Gap socks. So they email me, they ask me to buy my credit card and then ship it to them. In that case, if you accept Bitcoins and you're selling that, that's an easier method for them because now I'm out of the loop. If I'm an American coming to your site and I'm deciding between buying a DVD from you on Amazon in Bitcoin or my credit card, and my credit card's already logged, my credit card is probably a better choice. So from the UX perspective, it depends on what your customer is choosing it relative to. So it's similar to Patrick's point before.
I will
The
say
product
as
may be
a
10%
merchant,
better than a US product, but it might be 50 or 100 times better than what their native choice is.
I will say as a merchant that because the ecosystem of transaction costs for Bitcoin is not yet settled, currently, Bitcoins are a very good choice because they appear to be free for some. And so that, for a merchant, is a good choice if it looks like it's not going to cost you, say, the 2.5% or 3% that Discover might charge you, or your Visa or MasterCard merchant. However, in the end, there's going to be some cost of that transaction that's going to be borne by the network when the fraud does occur. And so either you're going to go out of business if you can't manage the fraud, or the next guy down the chain is going to go out of business who can't manage the fraud. And then in the end, as this system evolves, the merchant will also have to bear their fair share of that fraud cost. We just haven't seen it yet.
But I think you could also prevent that fraud on a scale as well, though. I don't think it's necessarily, I think if you take the right security measures, I think that can be prevented off the bat.
Mt. Gox is a pretty good example of the need to do that.
You don't store your Bitcoins in Mt. Gox, just FYI. Put them on your local computers.
So
Well, there's a good example.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, for example, like you don't blame the U.S. currency for something like MF Financial happening, where MF Financial in November lost $1.5 billion worth of money, just lost.
Right.
Yeah. So it's sort of the same system where it was. I would wager to say that it was incompetence that led to criminality, and but you blame people, you don't blame the currency.
It's usually the guys like Willie Sutton who understand that pretty well. They hang out in front of a bank because that's where the money is. I mean, if you have a Bitcoin exchange, it's not secure, it's going to get broken into, and somebody's going to take all the money that's in there.
So from my
and
perspective,
that's a risk
as a
to the
VC
owner, which will eventually be a risk to the transactors. Part of the reason that MasterCard and Visa and other systems have charges is to bear the fraud that is brought on their network by all the participants.
So I've been seeing a lot of pitches for people focusing on escrow services and other types of security
Cold
services
Bitcoin storage.
to address these issues. And obviously the system is really young, so we'll see more of these coming out.
Yeah, will we see an FDIC for Bitcoin?
Yes.
Probably not at a government level, but a private level, I presume.
I've seen emails
Like a
to that
Coinbase?
Yep, sure. What do you guys think about businesses holding Bitcoin? Most businesses I hear about, they convert it to USD pretty much immediately. Bitcoin Store obviously does not. What do you think? Is that good, bad? Are they crazy?
It goes a couple ways. So the way I say is the way we have to close that circle in the Bitcoin world in order for Overstock and these companies to start holding Bitcoin is for the employees to start asking to get paid in Bitcoin a certain percentage. So let's say like BitPay just came out with an API to allow you to take, I don't know, 10%, 5%, 50%, whatever you want in Bitcoin. So that's where I think the circle gets closed because a lot of these companies have overheads. They hold inventory and they have to pay that off immediately. And now the people that they're working with, they don't accept Bitcoin yet. So once I think that circle gets closed where there's your vendors, like we work with vendors right now. Ingram Micro, for example, they're such a big company, they're not going to start accepting Bitcoin probably for another 4 to 5 years. Everyone else that we're bringing on board, we're not giving them a choice. That if you want to work with us, we're only paying you in Bitcoin because that's how we do business.
So when you pay Ingram, you have to convert your Bitcoin to dollars?
Like I said, fortunately for us, we had hard capital from our sister company, so we hold our Bitcoin and they pay our invoices. So.
Man, that's a sweet deal.
Yeah. And we have terms too, so we don't pay on the day.
Adam, will you pay my bills next week for me?
Yeah, we'll just send them over.
Okay, great.
Use BitPay.
Well, Adam, I mean, you see a lot of Bitcoin companies. Are any of them holding? Have you made investments in Bitcoin as well? Pure Bitcoin.
So, okay, so Boost, we've accelerated 10 Bitcoin companies, wide range of different areas of Bitcoin sort of opportunities. I was able to raise a Boost Bitcoin fund to follow on to a bunch of the Bitcoin companies. These are just very exciting for a lot of VCs to get involved. And so a quarter of that fund was actually held in Bitcoin. So we were giving each of the companies that graduated from Boost $50,000, but then it actually appreciated and it ended up being worth about $120,000 or something like that. So it was a sweet deal for them. But I mean, you're taking currency risk. I I don't know. I see a lot of people investing in Bitcoin. I see more people investing in cash still. So I normally invest in cash, just so everyone knows.
Joyce, if you had a company that wanted to live a pure Bitcoin life, what would you think of that?
So basically, what we say is that it's up to the cash flow of the company. We have had other angels come into the deals that we've done that have done their investment in Bitcoin, and the entrepreneurs ask me, can we keep it in Bitcoin? I'm like, sure, not a problem, because it's already there. Why go through the transaction costs? If a company of mine said they want to put all of their money in Bitcoin, I would actually want them to diversify their risks, just because I'm investing in them to execute on a vision, and I'm giving them enough runway for whatever the case may be, 18 months or whatnot. And I don't want that 18 months to turn into 6 months. But if it turns into, if there's some upside and it turns into 2 years, 2.5 years, that's fine.
So what do you do? You get paid in Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, I get my entire salary.
What do you do when you want to go to like McDonald's?
Well, I cash out a percentage every month, but I pay from everything from my rent to takeout places and things like that to accept Bitcoin. I live in LA, so like places like Foodler, third parties, things like that, they accept Bitcoin. You can fund your account with Bitcoin and then just pay it off however you want to do that. So I pay my rent through rentolutions.com, and I live on Bitcoin about 80% of my life. So.
Do any of you guys do gift? I mean, I know when Target had their breach, I actually
Whole
moved.
Foods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Target, Amazon, everything we buy on Target and Amazon is through Bitcoin now. It's through a gift card. It's GYFT. It's 500 company. Plug. But to me, that felt, it's more secure. Like Target, it's kind of like, you burned me once, we're kind of done. You no longer have our trust. I had to change my credit cards. That alone is enough pain in the ass. I told my wife never shop there again. So we're married, so we compromised, and so she can shop there, but she uses, gift cards, to protect our data. Do you guys use gift cards? Is that the sort of easy solution now? Is that a hack, or is there better ways?
I would say that's what I do, but it's also helped me manage my money better too, because I like seeing my money grow. So when I see the Bitcoin going up, I don't want to spend that money. So
What do you do when it goes down?
what do I do when it goes down?
Yeah.
Hope it goes up.
Hope it goes up.
Fetal position.
There we go. Fair enough. So one of the parts I wanted to point out is living in the Bitcoin world is somewhat free, but the moment you take that transaction to some other form of currency that is exchangeable in your local community, there's a pretty high cost of transaction. It could be 4, 5, 6%. I've seen as high as 15, depending on the size of the transaction that you do. And so even though the Bitcoin transaction may look free to the merchant, the cost to the user of Bitcoin to convert it to something that's useful in the other world that we live in is actually pretty high, and it's pushing the transaction cost out to the user segment. I don't think that's going to last, but that's the way it is today.
Where are you converting?
Right.
15% is crazy.
Yeah, because I mean, everywhere I know converts
I
with
don't-
1% fee.
No.
I mean,
No, there are minimums. No.
No, it's
Var-
about 1%.
Varum,
Yeah.
Coinbase,
The highest I've seen was
Snapcard.
2%, and that was in
Gift.
Mercado Bitcoin.
Local. Oh, you're talking about
local
local Bitcoins.
Bitcoins.
Yes.
Okay, that's
So
that's
You're
different.
paying a premium, though, for
So-
some amount. Yeah.
Right.
So just join
Right.
Coinbase.
So I did give a range.
Okay. So it was local Bitcoins is slightly different.
But
If you-
Coinbase is $10, so if I'm taking out $100, there's a $10 fee. If I'm
That's
cashing
10%.
it, that's 10%.
Thank you.
What?
Yeah.
No, it's 1%. Everything's 1% Coinbase.
No, I think when you convert to USD.
You don't have to defend
No,
me.
it's
It's okay.
1%.
Okay.
It
1%.
costs
Shows
money.
how often I convert. Yeah.
1%. Everything's 1%.
So my point is
I don't
the
know what you're
costs
talking about.
the costs
a
are
good
there.
1%,
You
okay.
can't eliminate
I
the
just-
cost of
I just
operating a
listed
transaction
listed
network.
3 companies. They're all 1%.
You can't eliminate the cost of operating a transaction record, dealing with fraud, dealing with consumer service, and all of that. The cost is there somewhere in the Bitcoin network. It's just a matter of who's paying it. And the argument that it's free is
Yeah, I agree.
We're
It's
paying
1%.
it in today's payment systems. It's hidden from us. It's just a little bit more obvious in the Bitcoin system right now. But the fees in the traditional systems are much higher. We're just sitting behind smoke and mirrors.
well, okay.
All right, let's
Ta-da.
last debate, and then we can all punch it out.
Come on, let's go.
Yeah, well, this is a good debate. Is Bitcoin a currency or a technology? What do you believe? Is it both? What is it?
Well, I think the common misconception about Bitcoin is that the value prop is that it's a currency. Really what it did was it solved this very complicated yet simple problem, which is how do you create a trusted transaction between 2 non-trusted parties? And that technology can definitely take down a lot of middlemen and disintermediate a lot of business. It's basically made it so you don't need to use third parties for different types of transactions.
And I think that's hugely valuable. I mean, part of the reason Visa is no longer part of the Bank of America is because when they owned that network, they screwed everybody in the channel. They took as much revenue from each sector as they could. And the reason they were able to do it is because they could be the trusted provider of transactions. So I love the trusted aspect of it. But there's still a lot of fraudsters hanging around trying to grab their bits.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about fraud isn't just like stealing, right? Like me going in and hacking and stealing your Bitcoins from your safe.
Well, I don't know who's on the other end of the transaction, so there's a limit to how much trust can really be established.
I mean, I think identity is a really big opportunity for Bitcoin.
Exactly right.
And
And I think that would solve a lot of problems, but also root out a lot of fraud.
I agree.
To answer your question, I think the way people see Bitcoin who don't understand it, they see it as a currency, but those of us that understand it see it as a network, and the currency is just the first layer of it, because it's the most important problem that we have to solve in the world, I think. We need to get
everyone in the room.
Yeah. It's a global currency, and that's just the first layer. You guys will see millions of other things being built, not only this year, but just going forward from here on out. Just amazing.
Yeah, Boost is going to be launching 100 Bitcoin companies in the next 3 years. So, wow. Keep an eye out.
All right,
We're
Joyce,
taking
any
a big
final
bet.
thoughts? Currency or technology?
I think it's both. I mean, I'm not going to say that there's no such thing as a barter economy in the regular world, and if people trade their time for this or that, that's a valuable economic transaction, and Bitcoin is no different.
Great. We're just about out of time. There's got to be some questions, because there's always questions about Bitcoin. Right here, let's have it.
If you're alone in Bitcoin, then what do you think about intrinsic problems like deflation? If there will be an ultimate win?
So you're talking about the deflationary aspect of Bitcoin. So there are only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoins, and every economist hates Bitcoin for this reason. So it inherently is infinitely divisible, which is a new thing that has never been possible. So it has this inflationary aspect to it, even though it's sort of mental. Because I can give you 0.00000001 Bitcoin. And so it's not necessarily actually deflationary, is my answer to that.
About people who just keep them.
Right. I'm not opposed.
You're talking about hoarders. You're talking about hoarders.
Yeah.
So like, I hold on my Bitcoin. Yeah.
I'm Bitcoin happy, so I pass out my Bitcoins to people who don't have them. No, I won't give everybody.
You got a customer.
Got a QR code back
like
there.
0.00001.
I am not anti all coins that are slightly inflationary. I think that that's not a problem given people's behavioral, economic behavior. So I'm not dogmatic about it being deflationary.
You
Let's
want
go
to know
back here.
what stat I want to know, though, is like how much of the US dollar is hoarded? I would love to know that stat.
It's hard to know because so much of it is used in illegal trade.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's definitely
true.
that
Let's
number
go
is
back here.
that number is bigger than the
That's an
market
even
cap of
bigger number,
Bitcoin.
right.
Let's go to our next question. Go ahead. Let me just repeat the question real quick. So he's curious about microtransactions, and have you seen anything interesting in that space?
I think there's a ton of people. Like, look at all of the entire Dogecoin space. That's a huge economy and currency where one of the many activities they do, but one of the larger activities they do is tipping, and it's doing quite well. And they have more community adoption than any other altcoin. So.
By the way, I was like super anti Dogecoin for a while, which isn't that long, I guess 2 months or something. But then I recently found out that they have surpassed the demographic of women and high school kids using it for whether it be tipping. I mean, Bitcoin's like a bunch of geeks like me who use it and hoard it and just hold on to it because the value keeps going up. But I think that, first off, I'm also going to plug one of my companies to answer your question, Bitwall. They do microtransactions for publishers so that a new way of consuming content online, you can pay per article rather than subscription. That's the general idea. I think there are a lot of opportunities in that space. I think it's actually going to change the way we browse.
Yeah, I was going to say, I see a lot of businesses that are focused on micro tips or microtransactions for content. I'm not sure that's going to work just because there's so much free content out there, but who knows? But I think remittance and is the other sort of interesting aspect of Bitcoin and something we haven't realized a lot of the potential there.
And gaming and mobile transactions. I don't know why nobody's done that yet.
Probably one more question. Yeah, go ahead.
Different question than yesterday.
We did see you yesterday. Go ahead. Let me just repeat the question real quick for the live stream. Okay, so will companies like Tiger Direct and Overstock, will they use Bitcoin to facilitate more ads, to reach out to Bitcoin-related advertising networks, perhaps?
I think that'd be a smart thing to do, but I think right now they're looking at it as it's still early, 5 years, and it's still early, and they just took it on and they're playing with it. They're playing with the idea. So like he said, first day, what was it, $150,000 in just Bitcoin. That struck a chord. They said, okay, this is actually working. Now we need to know what to do with it. That's why I've said, I think once the employees start asking for the part of their payment or their pay, that's when they start holding more and things like that. So I think, yeah, that would be the logical thing.
Yeah,
I also think with that specific example, like Overstock.com, like big companies are worried about holding currency risk. And so they probably transact back into dollars pretty quickly. The only publicly traded company I know that actually is holding Bitcoin right now is Fortress. And they just have a huge old pile of it somewhere. Yeah.
And I would say, disclosure, I do marketing advisement for blockchain.info. Gift, GYFT, who we talked about, is a major advertiser on there. Blockchain doesn't take dollars. They don't have a bank account. And so all that advertising is done in Bitcoin as well.
But the Gift CEO, he's a pro-Bitcoin guy too, so he loves the aspect of Bitcoin.
He is, and unfortunately, you know what? They've gone and they bought up all the media, so on Reddit and so forth. So they bought all the good Bitcoin media, and obviously it's a good acquisition channel. They keep investing in it.
And just one more thing, Tiger Direct, actually we saw the CEO in Miami, and he was really excited about it. So I'm guessing they're going to start holding pretty soon as well.
Cool. I think we'll take one more in the back there, and then we got to go. Go ahead.
Because of the risk and volatility of Bitcoin, is that going to drive price differentiation in products? Like a 1,500 laptop can cost me 2,000 Bitcoin, and what it would convert to dollars?
Yeah, is the volatility going to impact the actual price for the end user, for the consumer?
What I see is everybody pricing it in Bitcoin at the time of the transaction, as opposed to it being a static Bitcoin amount. The Doge community is different. They have a one Doge for one Doge philosophy where they say you price things in Doge and it doesn't matter what the valuation is relative to the dollar. But Bitcoin sites typically don't do that.
Yeah, we denominate in US dollars, and then at the time of the transaction, we give you the price in Bitcoin. So price in dollars will always stay whatever it is that we buy it for, but in Bitcoin, it always varies based on what the price of Bitcoin is. So.
You're talking about some user change, though. At least a changing of mindset.
I think everybody denominates in dollar when they're doing the Bitcoin transactions. And then Doge denominates in Doge, but Litecoin defaults to US dollar as well.
Right.
Yeah, and I've also seen a toggle, so you can kind of look at it both ways.
If
we're out of time.
Bitcoin is less volatile than it has been, then that won't be an issue. If it becomes more volatile, then it will definitively become an issue for those who are transacting in it.
Yeah,
So volatility has really been